What's up, squad? Back with another video. I seen the title was going down. Make sure y'all hit that like button, subscribe button for me, please. Y'all seen the title? Let's get to it.
Let's move on because you talked about the threat from China. So this week we learned that China was behind a broad hacking campaign targeting the phones of both presidential campaigns, highlighting the threat that China poses to this country. And yet Donald Trump recently called his domestic political opponents, quote, the enemy from within, and said they are more dangerous than Russia and China. Do you believe that people like Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi are more dangerous than Russia and China?
Well, I think what Donald Trump said is that those folks pose a greater threat to United States' peace and security because America is strong enough to stand up to any foreign adversary.
Do you agree with him? They pose a larger threat to the United States than Russia and China?
What he said, and I do agree with this, what he said is that the biggest threat we have in our country, it's not a foreign adversary because we can handle these guys. We can handle foreign conflicts. We can handle, look, under Nancy Pelosi's long life in public leadership, the United States has gone from the preeminent industrial power of the world to second next to China. That fundamentally belongs on Nancy Pelosi's shoulders. And if we're going to have a more prosperous country, we've got to recognize our own leadership is why we lost our industrial base to China. Our own leadership is failing to lead this country into peace and prosperity. And of course, Kamala Harris, look, when I look at the biggest threats to America, Kristen, I think the fact that people can't afford groceries, the fact that we can't meet our recruitment goals in the military, the fact that Americans have a wide open southern border, that's a way bigger threat than any foreign threat. And yes, it's caused by broken leadership.
And yet, Senator, as you know, inflation is coming down. Let me ask you about some of what we've heard here.
25% higher, Kristen, than it was when Donald Trump left the Oval Office. Do Americans, and I think this is an important issue. If Americans feel like inflation is a solved problem, then maybe they should vote for Kamala Harris. If you feel like the price of groceries, if you feel like the price of housing is too high, if you feel like inflation is not over, then Donald Trump is your man.
Right. There's no doubt folks believe that groceries are too high. Just making the point that inflation has come down.
I agree with those
Let
folks.
me ask you about some of what we've heard here in the U.S. this week. Donald Trump's longest-serving chief of staff, General John Kelly, said Donald Trump is a fascist. He echoed comments made by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, who also called him a fascist. When two four-star generals who worked so closely with Donald Trump call him a fascist, why shouldn't voters believe them, Senator?
Well, I think that Mark Milley and John Kelly are both disgruntled former employees, and very many of the things that they accuse Donald Trump of, people who were in the room at the time some of those comments were made, they have said explicitly Donald Trump didn't say the things that he was accused of. And look, Donald Trump was already president for 4 years. If he was what John Kelly said he was, then why did Donald Trump deliver peace and prosperity? He didn't arrest his political opponents, as Kamala Harris and her Department of Justice have in fact done.
There's no evidence of that, Senator, that Kamala Harris has arrested their political opponents.
The Department of Justice has not been going after political opponents.
Senator, there's no evidence of that.
The current Department of Justice, under the leadership of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, has absolutely been going after the political opponents of the current Democratic Party. I think that's a disgrace, but it's happening.
There's no evidence that the DOJ is going after their political opponents. Donald Trump was indicted by federal grand juries. Let me ask you, though, you said that they're disgruntled employees. Trump praised both Kelly and Milley. In fact, he said Kelly was, quote, one of the best people I've ever worked with. In addition to those two, Trump's national security advisors, two defense secretaries, even his vice president all say he's unfit to be president. Why should the American people hire Donald Trump when the people who worked most closely with him say that he's unfit to serve?
The people who worked most closely with him, most of them are supporting this ticket. You mentioned one person, two people, a disgruntled ex-employee, Kristen, who Donald Trump fired. He said something nice about him, and then he fired him, and now that person's attacking Donald Trump. But I think this is important because I think the American media has to be honest. Why is it, Kristen, that John Kelly doesn't like Donald Trump? It's not about personality. It's about policy. And I think the American people have the right to know that Donald Trump rejected the John Kelly, the Mark Milley consensus that America should be the policeman of the world. And because that, these folks hate him.
See, one thing about it is that JD Vance will hit her with all types of facts and say this and say that. And every time she don't do nothing but interrupt. That's all she's doing.
Consensus that America should be the policeman of the world. And because that, these folks hate him. If Donald Trump wanted to start a nuclear war with Russia, I guarantee you that John Kelly and Liz Cheney would be at the front of the line endorsing him. But I think the media misses something really important. This disagreement is not about personalities. This disagreement is because John Kelly didn't like the peace through strength policy of Donald Trump. I do, and I think the American people do. He was the
longest-serving chief of staff, and Donald Trump says he only hires the best people. I got to keep moving, though, because our time is very limited. Former Vice President Mike Pence said, quote, President Trump asked me to put him over my oath to the Constitution. Anyone who puts himself over the Constitution should never be president of the United States. Will your loyalty, Senator, be to the Constitution or to Donald Trump?
Well, of course, my loyalty is to the American people and to the United States Constitution. But I think the best way to accomplish that loyalty, Kristen, is to get back to a president who delivered the fastest rising take-home pay in a generation, 1.5% inflation, and a secure southern border.
My thing is I don't know why they keep on trying to like catch him to think that he'll say something else or like what they're expecting. But I'm gonna be real with y'all, bro. If I'm the VP, wouldn't you want somebody to be loyal? Like at the end of the day, like I'm just being 100 with y'all. Like when you want somebody to be like loyal, like when you're in a relationship, you want your partner to be loyal, right? So like I'm trying to figure out like why they always make this seem other ways and try to flip words around and try to say this and have them say this and make it sound like I just be confused. I be confused, bro. Like, that's sad, bro. That is sad. Obviously, loyal to the American people, to this country, Constitution, all that. But you want to also be loyal to your bro. That's crazy, bro.
1.5% inflation and a secure southern border. I don't think there's inconsistency between loyalty to the Constitution and support for Donald Trump. That's why I'm out there trying to persuade my fellow Americans that Donald Trump's presidency worked for them, and I'd like us to get back to those smart policies.
Just to put a very fine point on this, Mike Pence says Trump asked him to put Trump over the Constitution. If you find yourself in a similar position one day, will your loyalty be to the Constitution or to Donald J. Trump?
I just said my loyalty, Kristen, is to the Constitution of the United States.
Trump?
But have we talked at all about the unaffordable costs of groceries?
Why does she keep on saying over Donald Trump, bro?
Have we talked about the fact that because I brought it up, but young Americans can't afford a home? You didn't bring that up. I brought that up. It's so interesting, Kristen, because I think that Kamala Harris's campaign, and unfortunately, too many of her media allies are more interested in what Donald Trump has said than what Donald Trump did in office. You're more interested in what Kamala Harris is accusing Donald Trump of than what Donald Trump actually did during his 4 years in office, which is
literally more so playing his part to attack him instead of asking real questions. Basically, that's how I look at it. Like asking real questions of actually what's going on in the United States, a little different thing. There's a lot of questions like that should be asked, but instead it's more so of attacking and, oh, well, Donald Trump this, he said that. Like, come on, bro. That is crazy.
Harris is accusing Donald Trump of than what Donald Trump actually did during his 4 years in office, which is deliver peace and prosperity.
We're getting a hard wrap. So on the economy, quickly before I let you go, Donald Trump on Friday again floated the idea of getting rid of the federal income tax. Just to be clear, are you proposing eliminating all federal income taxes in a Trump-Vance administration?
Well, Donald Trump didn't propose that. He set that as an aspirational goal.
Is that something you would back, getting rid of all federal income taxes?
Well, I'm backing Donald Trump for president, and he set an aspirational goal and said, look, in this country for a long time, we funded the federal government primarily through tariffs. In other words, primarily through penalizing foreign corporations and foreign countries from taking advantage of our domestic markets. That's an aspirational goal. What is very real about what Donald Trump has actually proposed to specific policy proposals is that we want to eliminate taxes on tips. We want to eliminate taxes on overtime pay. That's the Donald Trump policy proposal. He's talking aspirationally about something that he himself thinks is less of a focus than cutting taxes on tips.
Getting a hard wrap, so just yes or no, is getting rid of all federal income taxes on the table? It's a possibility under a Trump-Vance administration.
Is it on the table with the Democratic Congress that we have? I don't think that's realistic, Kristen, but I do think it's good to set an aspiration of what you want the country to look like.
So you don't rule it out?
And right now we're working on cutting taxes on tips, cutting taxes on overtime.
Okay, so you're not ruling it out. Senator J.D. Vance.
Thanks, Kristen.
That's crazy how they do, JD, man. And the crazy thing is, like, they would never do this to Kamala, bro. They would never do this to Kamala. They would never do this to Tim Walz. They wouldn't do this at all. They wouldn't do this. It's little baby questions. You get little baby questions. That's it. Y'all let me know y'all comments, thoughts down below on this. Make sure y'all check out video that I dropped before this, as well as the video that I'm dropping next. 3 videos drop tonight, live tomorrow for the election. So make sure y'all stay tuned. Appreciate y'all. Much love, everybody. Catch y'all next one.